Hello and welcome to Sunset Television. You're watching Big Picture with me, Vishal, Dahiya, and today we're going to talk about the telecom sector and specifically the developments in the telecom infrastructure segment. The Department of Telecommunications has amended the telecom licenses to mandate the use of equipment only from trusted sources from 15th of June 2021. The move is widely believed to be India's first formal step towards keeping Chinese gear suppliers out of India's future telecom expansion, including 5G technology rollouts. And the DOT's statement, which was released on Wednesday, it says, and I quote, the government, through the designated authority, will have the right to impose conditions for procurement of telecommunication equipment on grounds of defense of India or matters directly or indirectly related thereto for national security. So quite a significant statement coming in there and very important development as well. We'll try and understand what does exactly, this change in the norms means and also the implication on the industry out there and what can be done to go ahead and ensure the compliance as well. And for more on this, we're joined by two distinguished panelists. Let me first introduce them to you, beginning with Ms. Sadhna Dixit, who is joining us. She's a former advisor in the Department of Telecommunications, Government of India. And we also have with us Dr. Mahesh Uppal, Director of ComFirst India, and somebody who has been very closely involved for a long period now with the telecom sector. Welcome, both of you, to Sunset Television. Let me begin with you, Ms. Dixit, and let's start by understanding the context of this particular statement and, how will it change things?
I would say that the foundation was laid with the NDC policy of 2018, where one of the missions itself was said, we want to have a secure India. I think there are several government schemes which ride on connectivity. The infrastructure also different infrastructure is interdependent. Say in terms of power, electricity, transport, telecommunication, these are all interrelated. It's the backbone for digital economy. 5G is also going to increase the vulnerabilities with the Internet of Things coming in and people and objects connected. The vulnerabilities are only going to increase. The recent pandemic also has thrown up a lot of challenges and especially in the requirement both of a resilient as well as a secure network. So there is a need for looking at the security risks that are there. And it's something which is not new only to India. Globally, the telecom sector is looking at, the telecom administrations are looking at the cyber security as well as the security of the networks which are there, because everything is now practically everything is riding now on telecom interconnectivity. I think it's an important step. There will be implications. There will be implications to which I think we can come during the course of the discussion.
Okay, definitely. Definitely, we'll talk about the implications in the second round there, but let me also bring in Dr. Uppal. Dr. Uppal, from your point of view, the way these rules, new rules have been framed, new changes have been made in the licensing norms out there. How do you look at the need for putting in place these norms here now?
Sadhna ji has already laid the foundation for what we're going to discuss. There is absolutely no doubt that the security of networks is absolutely vital. In fact, the recent events, particularly relating to the pandemic and other political developments, have further underlined the importance of security. We shouldn't forget that security has been a key parameter even in the period up till now. I mean, telecom networks are very regularly audited for security and for technology and to make sure that they are not compromising any security related or compromising the security of the network or the country itself. So this is something which has always been a very high priority. And clearly recent events and recent developments have underlined this. So I think for the government in the past, the requirement was that the companies use standard equipment which met the standards prescribed by international bodies, etc. Now, instead of, and of course, in the process, you had what you might say a blacklist of anything that did not qualify. Now, what they are proposing, it would seem, is a whitelist. What they are saying is that we are going to come up with a list of network equipment which will be allowed on the network. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a new development. This is obviously a sign that they are taking security even more seriously than they were taking before. However, as again Sadhna ji has also pointed out, I mean, it will have implications both in how easily and how fast we can implement these, and what the implications are for commercial players.
Okay, so let's come to those implications on the implementation part there as well. And Sadhna ji, I'll begin with you, because there are two aspects to it. One is, putting in place new equipments, when we're talking about 5G technology or the rollout of other aspects of technology, new equipments are required, and from where they can be brought in, which vendors can be involved. But the other aspect is that there are existing equipments as well, and the government has clearly said that their maintenance, that is the AMC, will not be affected by this particular order. How can we ensure the efficacy of the implementation of these norms?
I think a lot of rules and procedures will have to be in place for this. A monitoring mechanism will need to be in place. Possibly some kind of incentive, disincentive also has to be there. And of course, the players themselves. The service providers themselves have to be very participative in this, because the objective has to be understood. Regulatory mechanism, monitoring, rules in place, as well as one has to see commercial interests. There could be a conflict between commercial interest and the security, but there cannot be any compromise on security issues. One needs to understand that, because when it comes to costs, the costs could likely, till the time new vendors come in place, the cost could go up, the investments required could also go up. On the other hand, it could also lead to the Make in India, a boost to Make in India program. We already have the production-linked incentive scheme earmarked. A little more, I think a significant amount needs to be put in for R&D efforts, as well as creating test beds for it. But all in all, I think this is something which we cannot wish away. Security aspect we cannot wish away, because another aspect of it is that there is a committee which is going to be there. So timeliness of the products, listing of the products has to be put in place. Otherwise, the process of purchase, procurement is quite complicated, and it's time consuming as well as capital intensive also. So one needs to have these processes in place well in time, so that it does not affect the networks, and affecting the upgradation, both the upgradation as well as new investments for the existing technologies which are there, for existing network which is there, improving the network coverage and all, as well as for the new technologies that are going to come. I think we need to have very soon the processes in place, the products to be identified, how exactly they'll go about it. There are in this committee which has been, which is going to assist the security agency. In that committee, we have people from the vendors also, from the service providers as well, different ministries. So it's a fairly large committee, and that's why it will the functioning of that committee from time to time, as well as meeting of that committee, needs to be quickly in place.
Okay. Dr. Uppal, your point of view there, sir, on the implication part, given the fact that, as Sadhna ji is pointing out, there's this entire process of, putting in place new equipments is both capital intensive and time consuming as well. So from industry's perspective, how difficult or easy it might be from here onwards. Also, the other aspect which Sadhna ji pointed out, that this might also turn out to be the opportunity for the domestic industry.
Absolutely. And I think Sadhna ji is spot on that there can never be any compromise on security. But I always mention that precisely for that reason, we also need to be sure that our systems, our processes, our criteria are themselves very robust. We cannot afford to be going simply by hunch, by any kind of preconceived notions. I think our approach should be to be driven by solid analysis, solid evidence, etc., etc. So that's one part. The second part is that, yes, it will mean that if it turns out that, for example, the government has not yet explicitly mentioned that this is meant to exclude Chinese equipment. But if the speculation is right, and if it means that the Chinese companies are not able to compete, then clearly we must be prepared for the cost of the networks to go up. And you can argue that that is a fair price to pay for increased security, or you might say that we need to be more careful. That's a different discussion. Fortunately, the government has also been practical about this. The government has made it very clear, even in this, that it is not looking for overnight replacement of existing equipment or overnight abandonment of existing contracts or AMCs, etc., etc. I think that's a good thing. But what it does also indicate is that the process is going to be both complex and time-consuming. And it's a task worth doing because the issues involved are grave, but it is not going to be an easy task. And we must be willing to go the extra mile to ensure that we do it properly.
Okay.
And that will mean that we work very carefully with all the stakeholders.
Okay, definitely. All stakeholders will have to work together, and this is one aspect which need to be taken care of very, very calibrated and careful manner. Now there, Sadhna ji, your point of view there on the aspect of, the 5G rollout and then the cost factor there, as Dr. Uppal pointed out, do you also agree that there might be an increase in cost in terms of the rollout, the 5G rollout with this new change in norms, and that's pretty much a fair price to pay when we're talking about the security aspect here?
Right now for 5G, there are vendors. The biggest vendor itself is one from China. And one needs to see as to how we overcome that issue. Should that vendor not be allowed to participate in that? So one needs to see as to, but so is the case, I think, probably in quite a number of countries across Europe as well as in the US as well. So there would be vendors who would have the products and the network equipments in place, hopefully. But yes, some costs are likely to go up, and we should be prepared to pay that price for it. I don't see we can't wish it away, I would say, because if we leave the network vulnerable, I think that's much bigger price at some stage that we are going to pay with the outages or the leakages which could take place. Everything is now connected. With 5G, everything will get connected. and the data, the kind of data that is available on that, we cannot put these to risk. And I think security is a bigger concern.
Okay, and does it have a bearing on the recent spectrum auction which has happened on that as well? Because obviously a lot more infrastructure will be required by these telecom companies, service providers who have bought spectrum there.
Surely it would, because this is the spectrum that has been taken now. It's not merely for renewed. For the spectrum that was due for renewal, but it is also for both upgradation of the networks and further better coverage as well. So they would need equipment. Only thing is, in case they want to continue with the maintenance, as Mr. Uppal was also mentioning, the agreement, the license, the change in the license agreement does provide for continuance of the existing maintenance contracts which are there, or upgradation to the existing equipment which is there. Possibly some kind of a permission may still be required for the existing upgradation of the existing equipment if it is to be purchased from those agencies which are not listed, shortlisted as the ones from which the products can be bought.
Okay. Since we're talking about all the stakeholders, and Dr. Uppal also mentioned that there, Dr. Uppal, I'd like to bring you in here and let's look at it from the industry's perspective once again. If you're talking about all these service providers, and if you look at the list of the service providers and their vendors, then as of now there are vendors from almost all big nations there: Finland, Sweden, Korea, as well as China, are major service providers, Airtel, Vodafone, even the Reliance as well. So all of them have one or the other vendor from these nations. Now the question here is that with the new norms, what exactly, from the industry's perspective, we are looking at it there, what exactly should be done by the government or by the implementing authorities to make the entire process more smoother there?
Well, clearly, one thing that the industry would look for is transparency and efficiency from the government's perspective. That, the point that Sadhna ji also made, if the systems that we do set up are sufficiently transparent and quite efficient, that means decisions are not held delayed for too long, and whatever clearances are required can be done in time, then it's something that the industry would obviously welcome. Of course, for the industry, the other concern which they cannot again wish away is that they will have less number of players to choose from. Network equipment is not the kind of competitive market that many other markets are. You mentioned 3 or 4 companies which are internationally competitive. And that, of course, if you take away the Chinese companies, this market will become even less competitive, and which also has implications for costs of equipment, which we will have to, as Ms. Dixit pointed out, we cannot wish away. The other thing is that while it is true that this is also an opportunity for Make in India, but again, it would be unrealistic for us to think that this is something we can do in the short term. In the network equipment market, as we mentioned a moment ago, is a market where your customers are telecom companies. These are not end users. So there is a very small number of customers that a network equipment supplier can look forward to, even across the world. The number of networks is limited. It's not like the billions of subscribers you're talking about. It's just a few hundred networks. So the point is, our companies are not yet competitive at a global level. We do not have the range of network products that any telecom service provider will need. So while we can provide critical elements in the network, some of them, we will still be dependent on overseas players for the larger part of the network. And so these problems are non-trivial, as mathematicians would say, and these are problems we will have to face up to.
Okay, definitely there will be problems and challenges, but those are the issues which have to be tackled along the way. Now, let's take a quick concluding holistic perspective from both our panelists here. And since we're talking about the infrastructure, the telecom infrastructure, and the focus here is on ensuring security, all of us know digital technology is the future here. So, Sadhna ji, what more needs to be done and can be done to protect or rather to ensure the security of entire digital framework?
The rules have to be in place. The rules for cyber laws are still not very, very clear on this, and that has to be in place. Greater participation by all service providers, all stakeholders in this, speed and transparency. On the government side, speed and transparency is required. People also need to be, say, in case, I think a little bit of cooperation may be required in case some tariffs could go up, because right now 30 to 40% is invested in some of these networks, which may go out. So the cost could increase. But I think we need to be very, very clear on security aspect, that this is something which cannot be compromised, because it's the backbone for a digital economy, and telecom needs to be the infrastructure, and plus other infrastructure as well. So it needs to be protected.
Okay. Dr. Uppal, from your point of view, sir, as Sadhna ji is saying that there is a need for a tweak in some of the rules, and obviously speed and efficacy and transparency on part of the government and awareness as far as general public is concerned.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we will have to do what the economists call alignment of incentives. We'll have to make sure that everybody has their own enlightened self-interest in ensuring the security of networks. So if we try to do anything which does not enjoy sufficient support, let us suppose you kind of rush through all this with, say, the telecom industry, or put too much pressure on, say, consumers, or for that matter, RWAs, then things can be very difficult. So it will be something that will require active participation of a large number of players in the ecosystem. And for that, the government in particular will have to create the requisite trust amongst all these ecosystem players, so that this can move in a way that is in all our national interest.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mahesh Uppal and Sadhna Dixit ji as well, for sharing your important inputs and insights on this very important and significant aspect which we were talking about, that is protecting the telecom infrastructure, securing the entire digital network or digital framework, because that is the way forward, and securing this network is really, really important from the national security's point of view. We'll come back again tomorrow with a different topic. Till then, keep watching Sunset Television. Thank you.